Alright, hey, what's up guys? As promised, here's the video. I'll keep it pretty short and it'll be a good one. Alright, so I just want to show you guys this. I don't have any more jokes anymore, I've ran out. But if you hit ZergRush into Google, you actually get these little things that run around and you have to like hit them. I don't know, I just thought it was funny. So yeah, that is my fun thing of the day. Alright, so anyways, I wanted to show you guys something, and if you've stayed with the video and you're watching the video, then that's good, because I'm going to tell you right now that I am going to give you guys a homework quiz next class, and it's going to be these two exact problems. Okay, so make sure you know how to do them, but don't tell people that didn't watch the video. Alright, so the first one is this. As you guys know, the SAT is being redesigned. Okay, it's being redesigned for Common Core, and here's one of the examples that they placed on their website. And I looked at it, and the first thing I said, hey, you know what? This is what my Math 1 kids need to know. And I think we should do this example, and I think this is a problem I'm going to give you on your homework. Also, I'm also going to give you guys calculators, because some parts of it are a little more difficult without a calculator. Right, so if you actually want to find it, just type in SAT. I googled new SAT, and it was the first one. And when you go to the first one, it's actually the fourth link, and then you view a sample question, and it's the first example. And I'll do it here. Right, so that's actually problem B. So I'll do part of it, but I'll leave the rest to you guys. Alright, so let's start off with A. Right, now in A, I have two things. I have 2 points. Right, now 2 points is by far the most difficult problem that you can get up to this point. Right, we have slope intercept, where they give you the slope and the intercept. Right, after that there's slope and a point, and that's just point slope form, and they'll bring you back to slope intercept. And then we have this one, which is 2 points. Well, 2 points, you can find the slope, then you're back to point slope, then you can go back and you can find slope intercept. That's the whole idea, that there's a hierarchy of like what's the easier one, and then going backwards to get to the easiest form. Alright, so if we have 2 points, I'm actually going to go ahead and color code this. So let's call this one the first point, x1, y1. And it doesn't really matter if I call this the first point or this the first point. It's just, typically when we read left to right, we're going to pick the first point as the left one. Alright, and I'll pick the other one as green. So here's x2, y2. Okay, so we were given that slope formula, right, which is m is equal to y2 minus, here I'll put the x2 as well, y2 minus x1, sorry, y2 minus y1, and then x2 minus x1. So if I plug all this stuff in, well, I get this. I get the slope is equal to -8 minus -3. Oops. Does anybody notice what I did wrong? These are not the y's. Okay? So let's go back and let's fix these. What it should be is -4. And now switch the color. I have -4 minus 5. Alright, then on the bottom you have x2, which is -8, and then you have minus x1, which is -3. Okay, so let's go ahead and compute this. So I'll pause and compute. Alright, so I kind of cleaned up some of the work for you guys. So -4 minus 5 equals -9, and then -8 minus -3. Well, I can do what some of the middle school teachers call you slash and dash. I have two minuses, that just becomes a plus. So -8 plus 3 gives you -5. So -9 over -5 gives you 9 over 5. So I know my slope, and I wrote it right here. And I picked the easier looking point, which was this one, just because this had like an 8 and a 4, and 3 and 5 look smaller. So negative 3 comma 5 is a smaller number. So I'm going to color code again. This is going to be, let's do orange. I'll call this x1, and then I will do red for the next one, which this will be y1. So all I have to do is just plug stuff in. So I'm going to take y minus, and if you can look over here, this is the point slope form that I'm using here. So I have a point and a slope. I'm just going to use point slope. So y minus y1, which is 5, and that's going to be equal to 9 over 5 parentheses x minus x1. Well, that's minus 3. Okay, and now we can kind of close this up. So I'm going to show you that this part really is just minus minus. That's a positive. And now I'm going to distribute. So I leave the left hand side the same. Y minus 5, which is equal to 9 over 5x. And that's me distributing the 9 over 5. So I have 9 over 5x, and I want to multiply that with 3. Okay, well, I'm trying to remember how to do this. Well, I think I put this as 3 over 1, right? And that makes it easy. So now you can multiply across. 9 times 3 becomes 27 over 5. Alright, so the last thing is, what you need to do is add 5 to both sides. So if I want to add 5 to both sides, like this, plus 5, I have to have a common denominator. So instead of adding plus 5, let me rewrite it on the right a little bit, and I'll show you the work. Okay, so I wrote it again right here on this little part right here. And what I'm doing is I'm going to add 25 over 5, right? What's 25 divided by 5? Well, it's 5. So I'm adding 5 to both sides, but now I'm writing it as a fraction. So how I did that is I said, well, maybe I have, and I'm switching over to like this color, beige. If I had 5 over 1, well, how can I write that as a denominator 5? Well, I can multiply that by 5 over 5. 5 over 5 is really just 1. I can multiply anything with 1. So I have 5 times 5, that's 25 over 5. Right? And that's how I got that. 25 over 5 is 5. So I'm adding that to both sides. And what that is going to do is that's going to clear my y up. So when I finish this out, I get y is equal to 9 over 5 x. 27 plus 25, that is 52 over 5. And I'm done. So now I have an equation that's in slope-intercept form. If you really wanted to, you can make that a mixed number. It would be 10 and 2/5, right? And this would be 1 and 4/5. So you have everything placed for you. That's the slope-intercept. So we start from 2 points, then we worked our way back up to point slope, then we worked our way back up to slope-intercept. So that's the idea behind A. And typically 2 points is where if you understand 2 points, you understand everything else. Alright, so let's take a look at B. B says, a scientist dives into the water. And this is the problem that was from the new 2015 SAT. Alright, so a scientist dives into the water. Pressure exerted as you increase and decrease depth is considered linear. At 9 feet depth, the pressure is 18.7. At 14 feet depth, the pressure is 20.9. Write an equation that relates P pressure with D depth. Okay, so the first thing I almost always do when I look at word problems, I try to figure out what is independent, right? And I try to figure out what's dependent, right? And typically these are things that tell me what my, essentially like my x is and what my y is, right? And in any coordinate, it's always x and then y. So let's figure it out. Well, I normally just read them aloud to myself. I'm like, okay, so does pressure depend on depth, or does depth depend on pressure? Wait, hold on. Depth depends on pressure? No, that doesn't sound right. But pressure depends on depth? Yeah, it makes sense. The deeper you go, then the more pressure there is. So dependent has to be that it's pressure. So pressure depends on depth. and this would be depth. So now I have those two, and I know what it would look like in a coordinate. Well, let's see if I can set these up as 2 points. If I set these up as 2 points, well, I have one of them here at 9 feet depth. That means 9 comma, and the pressure was 18.7. Okay, and then the other one is at 14 feet depth. I have 14 comma 20.9, and I'm gonna leave it like that. So if you're to set this up as a 2 points problem, which I essentially just did for you, what you want to do next is find the slope. So just figure out what your y2 and y1 are, right? So I'm gonna mark it for you so you have it. This one would be your x1, y1. This one would be your this would be your x2, y2. Okay, and you would use those. So once you actually find the slope, you can plug it back in, and then you have to realize once you get it back into slope-intercept form, you might get something that equals something like y equals blah 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 x plus blah blah blah, or it might be minus. Now what is y? Y we said was pressure, so y really is P for pressure, and then x, well x in this case is really D for depth, and that's just kind of making sense of what we replaced it with. So we typically use x and y just because we like those, but in a lot of word problems we typically replace them with different letters. So at the end I typically just go, okay, well what did I use y for? Y was pressure, so I'm going to switch that back to P. Instead of x for depth, I'm going to say D for depth. Right, so I'm going to leave that as an exercise for yourselves, but know that I'm going to give you A and B from this Chan Academy for sure as a homework quiz. Expect a calculator, expect the same exact numbers. Okay, you cannot use your notes, you have to be able to do it on your own. So study these two, and I'll see you guys in class.